Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Tales from the Pythian. I'm Greg. I'm joined with, as usual, Hugh and Jose, our co-conspirator Trip, and most importantly, our guest this evening, Silverquick. And we are going to talk about his modules for Solasta and what's going on with him and all of that. And with that, I think we're just going to go ahead and let Silverquick tell us a little bit about him, and then we'll get into a little bit about us. Silver?
Hey there. Well, most people from the Solasta crew know me pretty well by this point. I was actually here during the early access and through the beta, and I was also one of the first people to design in the actual tool set. And I've been designing with the thing from back when they first handed it out to us in early access, where we only had like one tile set and like a whopping 14 placeables and 10 monsters. And I've always been designing modules since then. And with each iteration of the tool set, I usually designed one full campaign, and they've always been very popular, even back during the early access days. In fact, some of my early access stuff that you can see from the very earliest tool set is actually still up on the Nexus. Um, so when they finally released it, of course, then I continued with each edition. I would take each iteration of the tool set and I would design usually a top rated module that everybody would go out and play and would just be super popular with everybody until finally the devs actually invited me to be a part of their beta team for their tool set to help give feedback and try to improve the tool set with the things that people would want or need. So that's kind of what I do nowadays, and obviously I'm still putting them out. So
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Do you remember the first one that you put out?
yeah, was called Crypt of the White King. And then the one after that was the sequel, which would have come right after that, called Hidden Shrine of Dramacht. And then I think it was Lost, let's see, I think it was Lost Keep of Agrimar, something like that. That was the
Nice.
first
Nice.
one.
Nice.
Uh,
Sounds like there's definitely a theme there that we're going to dig into that theme a little bit in a minute. I'm going to run around the screen here real quick. I'm in the top left corner, and we have Steve right beside of me. Hugh is beside of him. We
That's not how
have
it looks on our screen, but
uh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we got
That's why we look confused.
yeah, we got Jose on the far left. He is the beautiful imagery that we see tonight, and then this Trip down in the bottom left corner. We're going to start with Trip. Trip, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself. They see us play games. They see us play games, but we'll give them just a brief little snippet.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't been in as many games as these guys, but I hope to begin to participate more in the coming months and years. And I started in role playing games as a dungeon master. I actually went back and did some research because in the original Pythian first video that came out, I said I started when I was 12, but I actually began in the gaming probably when I was 8 years old. I was introduced by some friends in the neighborhood and didn't pick up on actually being a DM until 12. So I've played a multitude of role playing games throughout the years. Played a lot of did the basic, of course, D&D. You got to go all the way back to the red box for that. I
mhm.
still own a copy of the Chain Mail, which is the original Gygax and Arneson set. It is not a first edition set, but it is the original rule set. I've done the Top Secret and Star Frontiers and Champions, Marvel superheroes. I'm probably most inclined to enjoy the first and second edition D&D over all the others that have come about over the years. Really like the hardcore aspect of the first edition, but enjoyed the second edition with the guys present here. Hugh and Greg have been in a lot of my campaigns from years back on those. I've dabbled in the Lord of the Rings role playing game. Owned had the Middle Earth role playing game, Star Wars, Shadowrun, BattleTech, Mech Warrior, Gamma World. I've been in the industry for a long time, but took a little bit of a hiatus because we all got to pay the bills and fortunately, I'm back into it now and really enjoying it.
I would tell you that Trip is a RPG Jedi unless he's a player in your game, in which case he becomes a Sith. Jose,
Well, I definitely don't have that kind of a resume coming up behind me. Um, if anything, I'd say I'm a little bit of a different kind of gamer within this group. I didn't get introduced into Dungeons and Dragons until my late teens. All of my gaming prior to that was mostly tabletop, and I mean literally all the way back to growing up, Chinese checkers. Whether it was Candyland, Shoots and Ladders, Monopoly. I mean, literally growing up, if it started there, and then it grew into the Risk board games, and then we got Stratego, and then we got Survive, which they just did a re-release of that. And I mean, all of these just wonderful takes of gaming. And out in the Boy Scouts, one summer at camp, one of the counselors had a Shadowrun book. And that was my first introduction into role playing. And we didn't role play any at the time, but I really respected that counselor, and he left a good impression on me. So I was interested in finding out more about what it was that he was interested in, which brought me to the D&D group that I found at that time. And we played a lot of great D&D, and this was second edition into third and a half edition at that point. Though it was second edition THACO, we did play some THACO games.
yep,
Yeah,
second
yeah.
edition. Yep.
Okay.
Negative armor
So-
classes.
Yes, hard math. So, after the D&D, we had one of our guys that was a Rifts guy, more into the sci-fi aspect of it. And for those of you who don't know Rifts was a fantasy setting that was set in kind of a post-apocalyptic Earth setting.
Oh,
where
RIFTS.
huge rifts,
Okay.
yes,
Yep.
RIFTS, where huge rift
Down.
ley lines of magic spread across the Earth, coincidentally where they lay today, and each of the expansion books was a different city or a different town, and it all took place, and then they had a compendium kind of core book that you could bring any character from any other game in the world that would travel through these rifts. So if you played TMNT, the role-playing game, you had a place at Rifts. Your D&D character had a place at Rifts. Your Shadowrun character had a place at Rifts. And so that was a really fun game to play, and kind of formed a literal nexus to branch out to say, well, hey, there's all these other games that exist that are referenced just in this handbook compendium.
Very accessible
And,
for back
yes.
then. If you were a guy who had just played one of those games, and you go, oh, that's fine, play that character.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of set the stage for my viewpoint on how I game.
Nice.
But I'm still an avid tabletop gamer to this day. That's probably the majority of the gaming that I do. But man, it's always great to get into traditional D&D, and definitely something that is as well done as Solasta and the mods when they're as well done as they are by Mr. Silverquick.
No,
So,
well, thank you.
Oh, gosh, growing up, I loved video games and tabletop games. I do remember playing Risk with some friends and Stratego, stuff like that. But, all of that took a backseat to late high school and getting out of high school when I'd get together with these guys and drink beer and play games. And that was a whole nother world. Weekends just vanished. I think we had a group. I'm pretty sure we played every Sunday for 2 years straight.
We did. My wife can attest to that.
Every Sunday for 2 years straight. Dart gun wars, sword fighting in the backyard. Yeah, we spent 2 years on a good summer. But anyway, that's when, before that, I had run across Dungeons and Dragons books, and maybe even friends and I sat around and rolled characters and kind of imagined what our adventure wouldn't have been, but I don't think we had a DM or a campaign or anything like that, when I started playing with these guys, they were well versed into a campaign. And, a couple of games in, Greg was like, "Here, take this book," and it was Dragonlance. And the next thing I knew, again, if we couldn't play D&D on Sunday, we were playing Axis and Allies or the old Dragon Strike board game, something. And over the years, played many of the same things Trip was just mentioning. Of course, we were heavy into, I'd say, second, third, even third and a half. Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, all the computer games back then. Neverwinter Nights 2. I would honestly say, and maybe it wasn't necessarily for lack of interest or that we detested 4th edition or anything, but that's probably what we played the least of.
Yeah.
And I think that was just timing in life and our age, you know,
Yeah.
getting out of school and stuff. And we got into 5th edition, admittedly, a little late in the game. But overall, you know, you guys are talking about second's your favorite. You know, I think that's every table you play some blend of 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 5th edition. You know, there were rules back then that were, or character classes or ideas that were awesome. And I really like what they've tried to do with the action system, actions and bonus actions and the grid and the movement.
Pretty good.
5th edition, I'm definitely seeing progress. I'm looking forward, and I love the idea, like what they're doing, putting out all this Unearthed Arcana, asking our opinion, and that most recent video, they literally said the next coming months and months and years. So I don't think they're not planning on implementing these changes anytime soon. They really want to put out some ideas and see what people are gonna suggest back. So it'll be real cool to see what version we end up with next.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I played a long time, a lot of games, everything these guys mentioned, almost. I've played tabletop, board games, all the like. The only thing I could say of note is that if I knew what I know now about being a dungeon master when Trip was running the game for us back in the day, we'd have had to do rock, paper, scissors to see who was going to run the game. Because and then it might just be that I have found my niche in the virtual tabletop world. That's kind of my gig. I'm a cyber guy. I like to check out all the cool things I can do, so I really dig it. Which is another reason I think that I lean into really, really solid representations of the tabletop game like Solasta. I think that Tactical Adventures did such a phenomenal job with implementing to the rule set from the book so accurately. I think it just kind of, and the fact that it was a Kickstarter, I think is a testament to the desire of the community to actually get something like that in their hands.
And here the game, they're getting ready. They just announced
the DLC,
even more classes. They're still supporting it.
But yeah, that was what I was going to say. The fact that they continue to support it, and then outside of the continued support, then we have fantastic individuals in the community like Silverquick that put out these amazing freaking modules. And you were talking just when we first got started, you were doing your introduction, and I asked you about, do you remember the first modules that you created? And they all had a very suspiciously 1st edition name tagged to them. As a matter of fact, if we talk about the module we're playing, it also has a very suspiciously first edition name to it. And I think I want to just start the whole conversation off with, why you all hooked up in that 1st edition, man? Tell us about that. Like, because that's sweet, and it's even cool because Trip, who's like the old school nerd of the group, made the comment somewhere, whether it be on Twitch or on YouTube, about how 1st edition it felt, and he was watching it. He wasn't playing it. He was watching it being played, and I think that's even a little bit more of a. That says a little bit more, even, I think. So, can you tell us about that? Tell us about this whole 1st edition thing going on.
Sure. I was about 10 years old when it first came out, and my 1st edition of D&D was that one. I picked up the Red Book, ironically, just as Trip mentioned. I mean, as soon as he says these code words, some people don't. I'm like, oh yeah, I had that. But anyway, and ironically, Trip, I actually, do you remember the old Red Book, that module they use in there that, for all the descriptions, like the combat description, the dungeoneering description, the examples, where they go through with, like, Morgan Ironwolf and Silverleaf the Elf and...
oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Those names ring some bells. Yep.
I made that.
Oh,
you ever seen the Haunted Keep of the Slavers? That's the authentic adventure that is based on that actual adventure, because it's actually in the back of the Red Book. And Tom Moldvay goes through and so first of all, he builds the first level for you, that first initial area. And then he gives you, well, okay, here's the cross section. And then there's like all the way down to the bottom. Well, I took all those descriptions from those combat descriptions and like the dungeoneering descriptions that you read, like, you know, as you watching these characters go through all these decisions. And I made it exactly according to that, word for word, what they said, what they described, and I created it right down to even the random encounters that you see. Like
That
those
is
Wow.
awesome.
the buffs.
That's awesome. And the random encounters, I think that is an awesome addition to the Solasta world.
Yeah, they don't
Bringing
really,
that in, that is just
they don't really have
Oh,
them. I just made them. So all of a sudden, all
okay.
the things that are supposed to happen, I can do that. Bingo, and I put it in there. So if you ever play it, and you can actually see this on, I think, Core Dump's playthrough, he actually does go through it, and it shows you all these little things right down to the, oh, you open the door, both parties are surprised. You open the door and run smack into a group of goblins going the other way. Both parties are surprised. Roll for initiative.
Oh man, that is killer. That is killer.
That actually happens.
So you say that it's not. If I heard you right, it's not this. The game's not designed to do that, but you built it into the game.
Yeah, I did it anyway.
We
Okay, so you guys are in Temple of Elemental Evil right now.
are.
Okay, now I brought this up not on your actual playthrough, but while you guys were there, those actual encounters, there are no actual encounters in the courtyard of the Temple of Elemental Evil. In reality, the only thing that's there is random encounters. So what I did was I would roll a random encounter off the table and go, okay, for the sake of, you know, not boring people to death, let's add a few encounters on this map, but we're going to make them as if they were the random encounters. So of course, you know, I diced them up and went, oh, that's an encounter right there. So we'll use this encounter, and then I created it. I set them all up using, you know, the spawners and where they're placed, so I could strategically place them, look like they're ambushing you, or, you know, put them like they're just like hanging out and you like walk into them. And then I also used something which was a new feature that was added to the tool set a little bit later, which are actual timed encounters. So, you know, if you go rest at some point, all of a sudden a different encounter is going to spawn like somewhere else on that map. So, you know, no matter how many times you go through, you may or may not run into an actual random encounter. So that's kind of the way I did it. I mean, they're workarounds. They're not technically working like a real
oh, it's
random
perfect,
encounter,
man.
but
After hearing you describe it and after playing through it, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's, you know, we've spawned an encounter or two, and I saw them first, and somebody triggered it, and then, you know, okay, now we're in combat. I'm like, man, how do I get to this guy? I gotta go all the way around these damn bushes. These two guys are sitting here just ready to. If I go this way, that's a bad spot. Yeah, they were ready.
flooded them all out just like that. Tactical encounters. So yeah, that's if you were wondering, that's kind of how I did that. Is, you know, I know what D&D is supposed to be like, especially like the first edition, and my encounters are designed off of first edition encounters. So, and I tend to make them very, very first editionist because it was what I grew up with, what I learned on, and, you know, I don't want to disparage the other editions of D&D because, you know, they're all enjoyable in their own way,
Hmm.
but the edition that just rings home with me is still good old first edition and second edition for that matter too, because they're pretty much the same.
They are very close. They are very, very close.
They
That's for
really are.
sure. And so do you make them the modules that you choose to create? Is that Silverquick's top 10 list, or is it just this is what works within the framework that I have inside of this tool set currently
It's
to build?
yeah, I have limitations when it comes to the tool set because, like I said, they've been adding little bit by little bit to it. So some of the things that I couldn't design originally are things that we now have that I may have added to that module that it didn't have before. So for example, going back to the Slave Lord series, that was done with this. Okay, I suppose I should tell you about this. The first iteration of the tool set, as in the release version, I designed that Witch Mountain module, and then I designed, and it's actually a full campaign. It's a Witch Mountain, and then I designed Secret of the Black Flame, which was a takeoff on Beltran's Beacon, and then I designed the Halls of the Ogre Lord, which basically was Steeding the Hill Giant King, except done with ogres. And you're not going to recognize it when you play it, because you probably recognize bits and pieces of it, but we just flat out didn't have those things in the tool set. But again, they were close enough, and they felt first edition enough to where people would play through them and they'd be going, "Oh man, this just feels so real old school the way it's done." And so those were the first ones that came out with release. And that was the first campaign everybody played. They're still really high rated. It's just that now we have more stuff. So the second one that I designed in the second iteration of the tool set, where we actually got the castle tile set, we got the catacombs tile set, the wilderness tile set, and sewers tile set. I was able to design all kinds of things in the actual Slave Lord series. If you actually play the, A2 and A3, which are slave pits of the Undercity and stockade of the slavers,
Yes.
those are very close, but you'll recognize there are parts where I couldn't actually make it identical to the module, because I still don't have things like, slimes, and I don't have things like the Aspies, the six-legged bug things that you're supposed to go through. So I had to cut out like the entire layer of like the Aspies, and I had to make it so that when you come down from the initial temple, the ruined temple, you go down to the sewers first, and then go from there. And obviously, I didn't have things like I forgot what they're called. In Secret of the Slaver Stockade, Marquesa has these human experiments that she does, and there's all these crazy creatures in there that are human or used to be human, but they were surgically grafted all this stuff to them, and I can't remember what they're called. But so I couldn't put them in. I didn't have boggles. And a lot of the traps I couldn't do. So, that one where, you open the door and the logs start rolling down the hallway and you run like hell to try and get away from them.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Classic Indiana Jones.
Yeah. And there's a pit that opens up, and you fall into the pit, and then the rocks roll over the top of you. Or, like the one where there's a pit and it's intentionally short, except for that, and it looks like you can jump it, except that there's a little thin black wire. You get close.
Tough trap to make there.
Into the spike pit. So, there's some traps I just couldn't do, even if I wanted to. And like the boggle cages, it's supposed to be this thing where you walk through, you slip on the grates, and the boggles reach up and pickpocket your guys. So I couldn't do things like that, obviously. And all I could do is, so there are portions that I had to cut out. So when I design these, I have to design within the actual, limitations of the tool set, because I can't actually do everything that the module will call for. So I'll have to do something to where I just get it close enough to where it's like you go, okay, yeah. And if it's like, if they're really old people like us that don't actually have the old module, that can't go, oh yeah, that was page 33. It says it is this. They'll be going, oh yeah, I totally remember this. But that one little part that.
Well, yeah, that makes it great. If somebody did happen to, let's say that was their favorite adventure and they'd run through it back in the day, they would have a new take on some things. They wouldn't know it by heart. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a definite
That's one of my
benefit.
greatest. That's one of my favorite collection of modules are the slave pits. I thought it was very well done, and you have just a great cataclysmic battle at the end against the slave lords.
Yep.
So unfortunately, I never got to run a party through the whole entire thing. I think I did like the first module a couple of times, and that was about the extent of it. But
here's the kicker with that. You remember that module? I could not do the last two modules because at the time, you go to Sutterham, and then of course you get put in the volcano after that, and the volcano's erupting, right? Well, I couldn't do Sutterham because at the time we actually didn't have the actual town or city tile set yet. We didn't have the indoor buildings. We didn't have conversations. So that's another example there where A4, which is the final series of that, I actually had to wing it. So that last module is actually my original creation because I had to close it with something because I couldn't make the original.
oh wow, cool. Well, I look forward to playing that. I do.
That's kind of similar in nature than when you were in the, I can't remember if we were talking on Discord or talking Monday or somewhere we were talking, and you had mentioned that the beginning of the Temple of Elemental Evil was your take on getting you in there. That
Yeah.
was not the village of Hamlet. It was not any of that. It was you figured out a way to just plug it in.
Yeah. I was really pushing the boundaries on that one anyway, because this one really is really, really, really close to the original Temple of Elemental Evil. And this one is like right down to, names and faces. So I needed to actually, first of all, I already used the original Moat House dungeon and that the original Moat House from Village of Hamlet, which is supposed to kick off this series. I used that actually as a starter in Ruins of Ilthasbar already. So that was one. Second of all, I had originally made this during that initial intro that you saw. I originally made that while I was doing beta testing on the new tool set because, I'm in this actual secret group with the devs where they go, okay, well, these are the things we're going to be releasing with the new tool set. You're under NDA and you can't talk, but we need you to test these things to see how well they work out. And that specific portion actually came during a time when they just put out the town tile set, and we didn't have full conversations. We only had one-liner conversations. Full conversations didn't come till the most recent iteration. And then when they did that, I had this piece that was for the original Witch Mountain, but it fit really well as a tie-in because I needed to actually make Temple of Evil, the original tie-in, a blend with Solasta lore rather than Greyhawk lore because they didn't have things like, Ayut or, a Zugmoy model. So now there I was like, okay, well, so let's just roll it into an actual Solasta campaign world. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need something that's going to make people identify with Solasta and give them the feel of Solasta. And then when they get to the Temple of Elemental Evil, it'll blend very smoothly. So that first portion, the portion where you have the murder mystery and you go into the sewers and then you come out of the sewers, that's actually the kickoff. That's actually my original design to try and tie in a basic adventure to get you started and send you to the Temple of Elemental Evil. That's how that came about.
Okay, that's awesome.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
the murder mystery was really cool. And as a matter of fact, anybody who watches this, if you go look at our playthrough videos in the description,
Hashtag justice for Jory.
at the bottom, you will see
Hilarious, man.
hashtag justice for Jory.
That was
100%. And we were still after it. We still know who did the murders, but we still gotta look out for Jory.
Yeah. Hey, in Greg's Ravenloft game, the very first thing our characters were told was, "Hey, you need to find this girl over dark." It's like 7 levels later. We haven't seen it. We've been somewhere she was. We had a book she checked out from the library. We've gone to some other realm. We still don't know who this chick is, where she's at. Like we've beaten adventures and saved towns, and we can't tell you if this girl.
Where's Waldo?
That's how you build them. So with the do you have plans? And this is just based on like some stuff you just said with with the studying of the hill giant chief, which what was it called again? Your version?
Was sorry.
You're good.
That must have
was,
been the screenshot that I saw, because I saw a room full of like
giants.
ogres and
Ogres.
archer. Look, it must have been Orog archers or something. Remember, I was sitting with the other night. We were looking at the screenshots of some of your
Yep.
modules, and I was like, "Holy, there's like 14 things in there." And here's the party, and it looks like maybe they cast Globe of Invulnerability. I hope so. Like,
Guardians.
Do you
Yeah,
plan to go back and update it?
No, actually, I'll be making the actual, speeding the hill giants.
Awesome.
Awesome. Woohoo!
Yeah. All
When I
right.
get the materials for it, I'll be able to do it. Right now, I could technically do it, but in order to do that, I would have to use Zappa Stuff CEP because I have to combine tile sets for it.
I see.
The biggest problem is creating that steeding. I can create the halls of the fire giant snare, and but I can't create the glacial rift because I don't have that kind of a tile set. I don't have any winter tile set. And I could potentially create the steeding if the indoor tile set, indoor town tile set, if it wasn't so, how do we put this? Pristine. It's way too pristine for an actual steeding of the hill giants. But there are these little walls, like in the caverns tile set, that you could take if I wanted to do it. I could take them and line them up along the edges, so it would actually look more like a log cabin type. And I'm missing things like giant sized furniture. Still, I could probably pull it off because there's just enough in there to be able to do that. But again, it would require everybody to mod their game in order for me to do it. So I haven't done it.
Or you'd have to have an attached mod required. Yeah.
Yep, that's what you have to do.
So you're pretty much holding out for
Greg.
You're pretty much.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you're pretty much holding out for the future to ensure that you're doing that one right. I guess.
Yeah.
You're waiting on tactical adventures.
Yeah, I really want. When I do these things, I really want to do them justice, right? Because reality is, and I saw this in Neverwinter, there were people that were trying to do some of these that were just like, man, you really missed the boat here, and I think they're rolling in their grave.
You want to be as true as you can to the original.
Yeah, I try.
If you could make any
I
adventure,
can appreciate that.
Yeah,
anything.
I really don't want to
what would be your favorite, or what would be your top choice? Or
for mine? Well, the ones I want to do, I really want to do that giant series. I really do. I mean, to be honest with you, that one's my top wish that I really want to create, but I'm just limited on the assets for it. We now have giants, which we didn't have prior to the last expansion, but now we're still got to get some of these materials to be able to do it. I could probably, wing it and try to get it there, but I want it to be a little closer yet. I waited that long to create Temple of Elemental Evil. I'd been tended to create that one from the very beginning of the game, because when I first started playing Solasta, first thing I said to myself as I was playing it during the beta in the early access, I was like, oh my God, this thing plays like a cross between Neverwinter Nights 2 and Temple of Elemental Evil, the Troy conversion. I was like, you know what? And I said that in the review for it, and I said, and I've been telling people since early access, someday I am going to prove to you that this game plays just like the old Temple of Elemental Evil, and you guys are going to agree with me. You guys won't be able to say no to that. And it took me this long because we finally got the materials for it. And well, hey.
And I like your appreciation that you don't want to have everybody have to go chasing mods, and to make it work. I'd rather wait. And
I agree. Yeah, when you start asking people to mod the game to play your game, you're kind of
You're limiting your audience. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, because not everybody's comfortable with that, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I mean, even though there are a lot of like I don't know this, but I would assume that probably on the Nexus there's some sort of utility that assists you with mod management.
Yeah, there is.
Yep.
There's all kinds. It's just that, at the same time, you really have to depend on the modders too, because every time TA is going to put out a patch, you have to update the mod.
Yep.
And if they aren't on top of their own mod, that mod kind of falls to the wayside and it'll just stop functioning out of nowhere. Now, Zappa stuff, I'm going to tell you, this guy's he's legit, he's solid, and he really does. He keeps up on his stuff. But there are some that don't, and there's stuff where people have just kind of stopped updating their mods, and now they no longer work anymore. And it's like
That takes a lot of dedication
it
from the
does.
guys who create the mods. I mean, that's a lot of dedication, and then it
Passion project. Yeah.
pulls away from the main game.
It's a real
You know,
project.
I play in a BattleTech mod, and
Mhm.
that's literally all I play in. So if my buddies don't have the mod, then we're not battling each other. So
Yep, that's really kind of what it comes down to. So yeah, I do have future plans, and the reality is, yes, I am on the volunteer dev team. I'm in the veterans forums, so I know what all the upcoming content is going to be. I know what it's going to be about. So I know where I can plot, where I can think ahead, and where I can go. All right, well, I know that's coming then, so now I can kind of get in, start getting a pre-design for anything I want to do, and see how that comes up next. I mean, and the truth is like originally what I was going to put out for this edition of the tool set was a module called Tower of Time. But to be honest with you, the devs had actually got behind in the original Lost Valley content. And so they were designing right up to the pin. And the Dungeon Maker content ended up getting a backseat to that. So the real reason Temple of Evil came first was because, well, that was the one I could guarantee I could design, and I wasn't going to have to be waiting on assets for anything. So it was like, okay, I can do this. Bingo, bango, bongo. I'm not going to be, hovering in the middle of nowhere waiting for things. So, that's why Temple of Evil ended up this time. Even though
Well, Lost Valley was also introducing a higher level cap, so I'm sure that in itself is just
no,
any update that they're
theirs
raising the
wasn't
level
higher.
cap.
No, theirs wasn't a higher level cap. They'd actually done that to patch before.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Yeah, it's just that that's probably where you first ran into it, because it was like a half step, and that I think that one came out during that Primal Rage DLC. So, but yeah, that was another deal. Which that one, for that edition of the tool set, that's where I designed Runes of Ilthismar, because that's the one that came out with the city tile set and the uh, indoors tile set, and that's when we first got conversations, or those one-liner conversations. So, Runes of Ilthismar was designed in that iteration of the tool set. Temple of Evil was designed in the most recent iteration of tool set. And, then Slavers was the prior iteration, which is why, you'll see it as you start. If you play through these, you'll see each step or iteration of a tool set, and, just how much more you end up getting with one iteration versus another, versus another, versus another. So, and you can really see that. I mean, I do go back and update them with some of the stuff from the older tools or the newer tool set, but sometimes they're pretty locked down, and you'd have to break a lot of things apart to actually fix them or update them to that. So
Take so many steps backwards. Yeah.
yeah, like Runes of Ilthismar, I designed the entire thing using the one-liner conversations, and then those splash scenes you saw in Temple of Evil, where it'll show a splash screen, and it'll give you a full rundown. Well, there, what I do is I take the conversations and I put those in the actual splash screen, and then I use one-liners after that point to give you kind of like an update on the actual conversation. So when I went to go and add actual conversations, I'm like, man, splash screen's so good and it covers everything so well that if I had a conversation here, it's kind of more be a disruption than it's actually going to add to the thing. So, so there the conversations are in. I went back and I rewrote a bunch of conversations. I put them in, but at the same time, it was designed to, that story was designed to be told with a different medium rather than, the medium we have now. But nevertheless, in Temple of Evil, you see some really good conversations with multiple choices, and you still see all those one-liner conversations with the people in the bar used for rumor mill. You see them, just people on the street saying hi. So, different medium, different tools that you can use.
Very cool.
I, for one, enjoyed the rumor mill conversations, and that is actually what pointed us in the right direction. I don't remember this specifically, but it gave us an idea of where to go next.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. That it was kind of, if you hadn't gone and clicked around on all of those different people in the pub, some of them said the exact same thing a couple times, but there was some actual backstory and knowledge in there. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, that first part that you guys went through in that Temple of Evil module, that one was designed during that previous iteration of the tool set where everything that's told to you actually gets told to you through one-liners and, the splash screens. That was originally designed that way. I just removed the splash screens and added conversations. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, that one was designed to direct you around with just one-liner NPCs.
Super cool. Super cool. So, what was that? What was that module? What was that? Was that Tower of Time? Do you want to talk
Tower
about that at all?
Yeah, to be honest with you, that one's actually, most of the way done. To be completely honest with you, it is. It's just that, I tend to enjoy playing through my own modules too, just as much as you guys. I do.
Nice.
If I get to the point to where I'm going, man, I'm just not getting into this as much as I should be, I kind of put it on the back burner and go, man, I like it, but I don't like it enough. And then I may or may not put it together. But, and I've talked to you guys about this, and I'm actually glad you guys want to actually see it. So I also have to look and be honest with myself. I have been playing this game a very, very long time. There is a possibility that things that aren't necessarily new to me are things that I would think, oh, it's same old, or that's just not doing it for me, might not actually apply to other people. So,
Sure.
Tower of Time is based on kind of like, you guys heard of like Japanese anime and like an isekai adventure?
I've heard of Japanese anime, but never
Probably
isekai.
not an isekai.
No.
All right. Well, what it is designed with, it's kind of where you start in the modern world, but you get transferred to a different world. So that's actually the basis for Tower of Time. You start out as, you were going on about your business in the modern world one day, and all of a sudden, poof, now all of a sudden, poof, you get shot into another world and you have to adapt and et cetera, et cetera. Now, in this case, it looks a lot more like, the Grimgar anime, where you don't really have, your full memory of that previous life. But it's the same thing, and it's a lot trickier than I thought it was going to be to actually tie it in and keep a directed focus with it. Now, really, it's a lot of conversation too, a lot more than in my previous modules, because this was the original one that I designed to test the new changes to the tool set with. So that was when we first got conversations. So it's got a lot more in-depth conversations, a lot more cool looking scripting. It's got a lot of things that are done that are way more advanced than you've seen prior. And but at the same time, I got to, about halfway through it, and I'm just going, I'm not really having as much fun with this as I'd like. So yeah, when you guys volunteered to try and help me out to see if it was just me or whether it was something else with it, I do appreciate that. I'd really like to know whether it's just me, just because I'm old salt with Solasta, so I'm looking.
High standards. Yeah.
Yeah, my standards are too high. Yeah, so I do appreciate that, but that's
Sure.
what Power of Time was about.
It sounds like a very complicated genre to integrate into the system that you're working with, and then almost like you have to hit a key audience with it.
Yeah.
When you're going down that anime path, and I mean, my son's been into anime some, and some of his friends have all been into anime, so I've got a little bit of an introduction into it, but I could see where the additional conversation comes into play, because it becomes very storytelling in a way.
It does. It does. Because, have you guys ever heard of a game called Stranger of Sword City?
No.
I have not.
Doesn't ring a bell.
That's kind of what I'm trying to pull off. And this is, it's very, very similar to that. And that's what I'm trying to pull off. This was trying to do something more than your average. And when I actually started out, it really is pretty exciting. It's just that I might have to find a way to pull it all together to, tie it all up, because usually I have a very solid start. I have a good, enjoyable middle, and then I tie it up with a good, solid ending. But this one, I'm having a hard time tying it up. So anyway, that gives you an idea of what I was looking at.
Well, from what I've seen of it, I will say that I felt like the beginning. Again, I'm not familiar with that particular style of anime, but I think all the way up into a certain point, I think when you kind of get stuff, right? When you suddenly get all your stuff, it had a very Cthulhu-ish feeling for me. Don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's kind of the vibe I got from that whole thing. And I think that the dialogue is what took me there, because it was very.
Oh yeah.
Would
Right.
you describe that Cthulhu-ish feeling for those who may not be familiar, although shame on you if you are not familiar with Cthulhu, as psychologically disorienting? Would that be a way to describe it, or would
I
'cause
won't. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it. But I think that there are words that are used in conversations that I felt were very specifically used to imply to evoke a certain sense, right? And I feel like they worked. And just the way that it came off to me was, it felt very much Cthulhu, in that there is that something beyond. You kind of know that it's there. You don't know what it is. It, could be good, could be bad, but at the same time, it's unsettling, right? And
so the ominous
Okay.
ever
All right.
presence?
yeah, and that's kind of that's the vibe that I got from what I have seen of it, for sure.
That sounds very well stated.
It was good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just how it caught me, right? So, and I'm very particular, man. Like,
Yeah,
with anything,
sure.
like with movies, trust me, there's a shitload of movies that get watched in this house. I don't participate in many, many, many of them, because with a movie, it's got to catch me, and a movie's visual, right?
Yeah.
Same with television shows. I'm just very video games. I'm very, very particular, and there are definitely out there dialogue heavy games that they're just slow, or it's not even slow. It's like a combination of slow and too vague, right?
Yeah.
Or slow
Oh.
and I don't know. This was not that. It was. I mean, it was very heavy dialogue, and
Mhm.
it had me instantaneously, like the splash screen intro.
Mhm.
Hook, line, and
Dude, I'm serious, because it completely caught me off guard. Not what I would ever have expected. Completely off guard. And then it built upon that, and that's where I say it got very kind of Cthulhu feeling, all the way up to a point Now,
Mhm.
beyond that point, I tried not to pay very much attention to, right? Because that's because I'm like, now I want to play it, right? Now I want to play it, and you guys know me. I'm not like Hugh. Hugh and I both got, and I know there's probably a few of us on here that got Baldur's Gate 3
Yes.
early access as soon as it came
Yeah.
out, right?
Yep.
And I played it a couple times, and Hugh will get out. He'll be like, "Dude, let's play Baldur's Gate 3. Let's play Baldur's Gate." And I'm like, "Dude, if I play that too many times when they release it in full,
I know.
I won't want to play it
Right.
because I played
I
it."
don't think that's true. I think things
But
change enough with every update. But I can respect your decision.
yeah, so that's why as soon as we got to that point in Tower of Time, and I was just like,
Because
"No,
the
I'm
minute
not
they
looking
introduce
no more."
minute they introduce multi-classing in any one of these games, everything has changed.
Oh, yeah. Tables are turned. Tables are turned.
Do you
It's a
think
whole new game.
that's a good point? Do you think Tactical Adventures will ever implement multi-class into the core system? All right, next question.
That's the next question. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something about Tactical Adventures, just so that you guys understand it. They literally will tell you, they'll tell you, no, we're not going to do that because we just don't have the people for that. And they're right. They really don't. They have a very small staff. But they'll sit there, they'll tell you stuff like, no, guys, we're not going to be doing multiplayer. We just, we don't have the know-how. We don't have the ability to do that. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to give you guys a tool set. I mean, I know that we thought about it, but there's just no way we can do any kind of like tool set. So, we're going to have to skip that. We're not going to do druids because, so we actually made some clerics that are like druids. And
Well,
we're
as you
not.
said, it was a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And there weren't necessarily stretch goals, and it got funded, and I think it probably enjoyed more success than they wanted to reasonably entertain.
Well, that's a possibility too. I mean, really, they did. I swear to God, they told us you're never going to get a tool set. But back in early access, I was looking through their original interface because it hasn't changed, and the dungeon maker wasn't there. But when you clicked into the campaigns, you like select campaign. I'm like, you know what? This thing looks damn like Neverwinter Nights. These guys are going for a tool set. I swear to God, they're lying. They also said they were never going to do multiplayer. And guess what? We got multiplayer.
That was the game changer.
Yeah, that was a game changer for them. Oh my gosh. Wow. That revolutionized it for us. Because Greg and I had already played through the original campaign and stuff, and then bam, here's multiplayer. And it's like, playing it in the multiplayer realm is
Totally
so
different.
much more satisfying than it
Yeah,
ever was
absolutely.
playing it individually.
Yeah. I mean, I loved the single player. I was just sucked in and hooked on it. But boy, when I remember, because I was one of the people that was, back in the testing phase when nobody knew this was coming, and we got the super secret patch, the veterans branch, and we're all like, "Oh, cool! Well, let's give this a shot." So, and everybody's over on the forums, and they're all talking like, God, you guys, you got to do multiplayer. And I'm over on the other end going, yep, doing it right now, but I can't say a word.
Awesome.
I have to agree. I like Tripp said, he and I both, we kind of like parallel beat it. He was playing his game, I was playing mine, and we kind of parallel beat it. And then I know Hugh had the game and was starting to dabble, and Jose didn't yet. But then we had beat it, and then right when I think Jose got it, was shortly before they came out with the multiplayer. So Hugh and Jose actually played the main campaign all the way through for the first time together. So their first experience playing through the entire campaign was in multiplayer, which I think I'm jealous. Like I'm jealous.
Yeah, right.
Like Tripp and I are like trying to freaking powwow over what we can make our parties do and what's your strategy, what's my strategy. But you always had two separate brains thinking for four, right? And
that's
these
the fun
guys
of it.
split
It's fun to design a party, but it's also fun to go, screw the party. I want to play this. and then everybody plays that, and you see if it works. And if you get
That's
crushed,
right.
you're like, okay, maybe we go back to the drawing board and we do I don't know, fighters and
something different.
clerics, you know.
Well,
Well-
I gotta say, like playing that, like I went and I did like a core group from all the way back
What
into
you
the
would call a classic
basic
party.
classic party. You know, I
Which
pulled
was
off,
what was your party?
it was a fighter, it was a cleric, and it was a wizard, and it was a thief.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were times of struggle and times of pain, but that classic party, I was amazed at how well it just played through the game overall. You know, how it was able to capitalize on everything you could get from the
Everything you
game.
could possibly want. Yep.
Well, the interesting thing was initially they both, I think Greg and Trip both played like kind of your classic party through the campaign, and I hadn't gotten that deep into it. I'd played around a little bit, and they had very much said, yeah, you want a classic party, you know, because you're gonna need to be able to heal, you're gonna need to be able to open traps, and you know you're gonna need a front land. And then when the multiplayer came out, we all kind of went, you know, well, hey, what if we tried? Let's go crazy. Let's try the high magic party. Let's try a bunch of casters. And we played through a good bit of that. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember to what level. And we were amazed at how much control casters had. We were really able to, the right spell, the right time changes a battle.
Mhm.
And so when you have 4 casters, you know, let's say a druid, a cleric, a sorcerer, and a mage,
Mhm.
you've got some real responsiveness. And then from there, we've all played around with, you know, trying to try a crazy part, you know, and we haven't tried like the all melee party yet, but
No, that would be an
nobody's totally willing up to give up. Nobody's
That-
totally the all martial party. Nobody's totally willing to give up magic.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, even if you go all
We did
martial,
do-
you get still
spell
Oh,
sword. Yeah.
yeah.
No, we
A
did that all
paladin.
thieves party
Yeah,
that
there's
lasted
that.
all of 2 seconds.
Well, we did an all thieves party. We random
All the
rolled
parties
on the
strong
cataclysm
player
mode.
All right, so folks, we had a little bit of problem with the Cataclysm mode, and it goes like this. Number one, I was a very much newbie with the technical on the back end here, and we had no sound. So if you can get past that and watch it, God bless you. It's worth it, even though you can't hear the game sound. Number two, we played on Cataclysm mode, which is no
And
freaking joke.
Which
No.
I've gone back and tried with other non-random rolled characters, and let me tell you, if you can make it to the first rest point, and literally in the main campaign of Solasta, you're going to have to go in. You're going to have to go through the first 1 or 2 encounters, basically burning nothing but cantrips and attacks. You're going to have to short rest after it. Probably after you fight the tiger drakes, you're going to have to leave the area and go travel back to town just to be able to rest for
Mhm.
a night and hope you don't have random encounters, and then travel back to this area. You're not going to get to the rest point. The
How
Sorax are
first
gonna
edition is that?
Well,
That
so,
is so classic first edition.
I'm assuming how the tool's
It's
built, Silver, that if we played, and we're not going to, we're going to finish it just like it is. But if we were to play Temple of Evil in Cataclysm mode, it just scales what you've created. Is that a correct
Yeah.
assumption?
It does. I mean,
I would not do that.
We're on it. We got to do it
After
now.
that
What are you talking
skeleton
about?
fight, what?
Oh, the
Trip,
skeleton
enemies-
fight! Tell me what you did to these skeletons,
Trips,
man.
enemies have 200% health. They get a +3 to every save, everything they do, and you're at 0. Like tiger drakes in the main campaign in Solasta,
Yeah.
they're +9 to hit.
yep.
+9 to hit.
Yep.
You're second level.
Yeah.
They're
You're
not
in
going to miss you.
18.
They need to roll like a 4 or less to miss you.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I
Yeah.
thought in that skeleton encounter, that first like that encounter, that was really like the first encounter. I feel like, right? Like not that the Sturges were first. We had like a couple little things, but that was like the first big one, right? I thought we were going to die.
Well, I think I've thought of it. If we had gone the other route, we would have fought the humans first, and then I think when we went through the secret passage and we fought the boss, he would have summoned all the skeletons. Would have come. It would have been him and the skeletons, right?
No, actually,
The Inquisitor.
all it
Okay.
is, it doesn't do that. I mean, it is actually designed to go through that path if you try it the first way. But of course, there's the, oh, we missed our secret door check from that side because it's a higher check. But in a nutshell, I mean, if you get lucky and you kept a good perception and you got somebody with high enough wisdom, with high enough perception to detect it, you'll detect it and you'll be able to go that direction. If you fail that check, then you have to go around and go through the skeletons, and that's when it gets kind of brutal.
So now
Kinda.
you've got to take on
That
the
was a
humans,
Kinda?
brutal
the
fight. I
skeletons, and the
watched you
Inquisitor
guys fight
before you
that.
get to the rest.
Yeah.
And hopefully not trigger the spiders, Jose.
Dude,
Yeah,
that,
I
like,
was just
I was
looking.
instantly, as soon as that encounter happened, man, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, well, I knew it wasn't going to trigger on you guys because he didn't go far enough into the room. But I keep in mind I play test these till I see it. But I'm sitting there watching you guys freak out, going,
Well, I can only imagine if I certainly haven't, but if I were to put the time in to try and design something like this, yeah, after getting it all together, I'd be like, man, I want to watch my friends play through it.
yeah,
Like, I want to be
Yeah.
able to watch. Why isn't there a DM mode? Even if I don't do anything, in Neverwinter Nights in Greg's world, in one of them, I was a DM and I would just log in as a will-o-wisp and I would follow
Yeah.
people around. And if they were like, what is that? I'd just circle around them 3 times. They sit over here. And like, I wasn't really going to, and if they got tired of that, I'd turn into a dog and just pass them on the trail or something,
Hugh, you just stated a huge premonition. Could Solasta ever go to a DM mode?
I mean, that would be,
Whoa.
Hey.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about it, but it would not surprise me when I tell you that Solasta devs just spring random stuff out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh, we're totally not going to do it, man. We're totally not going to do it. They just drop it on you out of nowhere, and you're going like,
I like that.
so they do. They really have a tendency to do that, and it's like I know what you're telling me now. I know what you're telling me now, but
That would be the catalyst that would take me into the Dungeon Maker. I think
Oh, sure.
if they were to do
Yeah.
something like that, then I would go into the Dungeon Maker. And the only thing that has kept me from the Dungeon Maker is that if I were to go in there, and this is just, I don't know, I would just want to be making something for my friends, right? I'm not one to put myself, throw it out to the world because I would be cobbling it together. You know what I mean? But that would definitely push me over the DM mode.
It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting because I think it's a good platform for that. I now how do you do it technically? I haven't got a clue.
Oh yeah, me either. I don't know how their code
that's
structure or anything like that.
that becomes or just the playability of it because now
well, I
you're
can't lie to you guys. You guys are telling the truth when you said multiplayer just jumped it into the stratosphere because it really did. I watched it too. I've been here in the community since the very beginning, and
When was that?
Watching the waves. Let's see. It would have been 2 years ago, not August, but I think, or maybe it was August. It was around in there. And actually, was it 3 years ago?
2019 or 2020?
Yeah, it was around 2020, 2019. It was
Okay.
right around in there. And might have even been, no, it was further back than that, 3 years. Because, yeah, it's 1 year. It was like 1 year before the game was actually released. And, yeah, it was about a full year. And so I was there with each of the new iterations, each of the new patches. I remember things like there only being a whopping, 10 rations at the only merchant in town. So, you the dark keep way the hell out there, and it's a 40-mile, it's a 40-day journey. You're never gonna make it.
Yeah.
You have to do things
Yeah.
like that.
We need a wheelbarrow and a donkey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
You
you
did.
did you kickstart it?
I didn't. I was actually playing Baldur's Gate 3, and somebody came on there and they said something about Solasta. And I was like, oh, well, never heard of it, but I'll go check it out. And I did, and it was like, it just started up. And I was like, wow, oh my God, this is all the things I actually wanted in an actual D&D game.
Mm-hmm.
This is really, that was when I said, man, this thing plays a lot like a cross between Neverwinter Nights 2 and Temple of Elemental Evil. And that was the very first time that happened. And so that's when I just completely got hooked and addicted and just stuck to it. That's how I ended up where I am.
Awesome. Awesome. I did not kickstart it either, just for clarity. I got it in
No,
early
I did
access
not.
because they did an early access when they first, I guess they
Yeah.
released the beta to the Kickstarters or whatever, and shortly after that, it went into early access, and I picked it up. And if I'm honest, I played it. I tried to play it in early access 2 or 3 times, and it never really got me. Right, there was just stuff. So I was like, eh. And then when it released full, I was like, ah. Like the news popped up on your Steam, right? Like that.
Mhm.
So that reminded me I even had the game.
Oh yeah, I did.
Right? Yeah. And then that's when I went back and I started playing it, and then I was like, boom, I'm in. All right, this is cool. And I played it till I beat it. Boom, all the way
All the
through.
way through.
Yeah. So they did a good job. They came through with it. And it's my understanding that there's a lot of game Kickstarters that don't
They don't even make it that far.
yeah,
They
they
don't come to fruition. Yeah.
yeah,
Or they're successfully backed, but never.
never quite do it. Yeah.
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 I personally, I like working with indie developers and the small crew like that. I really do. I mean, in a general sense, they're a lot easier to deal with. They're a lot more responsive. I used to be a big BioWare fan, a big Obsidian fan back when they were Black Isle. But that's back in the day when they were just small indie gamers nobody had ever heard of.
Baldur's Gate 2,
And they put out
Icewind
some amazing
Dale,
products. Yeah.
freaking
Yep.
Planescape.
BioWare did a bunch of Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. The Knights of the Old Republic.
After, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Knights
And
of
then
the Old Republic. They used the Neverwinter Nights engine for that.
didn't they come back? Weren't they involved or have a hand in or do Dragon Age? Wasn't that a BioWare?
That was BioWare's original creation. After they
Yeah.
did Neverwinter Nights, well, there were some, we'll just say, small disagreements between them and TSR. Most people don't know.
Shock.
Which you were heavily involved in Neverwinter Nights too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were heavily involved with Neverwinter Nights also, right? So I mean, it's no stranger that you ended up creating great content for Solasta.
Yep. Yeah, because I actually did Neverwinter Nights too, and I was the first Hall of Fame module designer there too. I was first guy.
Awesome.
Tragedy and Dragador, way the hell back when. Way back.
Another first edition module. Just
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
it was.
Going
but
way
I
back.
love that, dude. I love that. Like, when you go looking for, when I go looking in the workshop for stuff, right? So, number one, the first thing I look for are ratings, and
Yeah.
and this is where we're going to shamelessly plug your modules because every single one of them on Steam is 4 stars and higher, and there are not many that that even have good ratings. The other thing I look for is some type of familiarity because I feel like if I can play through something that I know, then I can pass a legitimate judgment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there's the other part is that it's a little bit more familiar so that or at least think you're going to get a good basic to it so that you've got a level ground to start with. And I know a lot of people do that when they first start to try, like player made modules, because you're right, it's kind of a risk. Some are really good and some just, well, they're really not. So yeah, a lot of the times, people will start with something that's a little bit more familiar because they know at least there's a basis here to start working with. And then, if the creator's really good, they're really going to take it in a really good direction. It's going to be very enjoyable, and you know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like at least you've got the basis of it. There's familiarity there, so that you know you can go, okay, I can at least expect this level of something. So yeah, I totally get that. I do.
100%. Well, we've been going on about an hour and 20 minutes. You guys want to take a quick break and
Not a bad idea.
and then we'll
Yeah.
we'll come back and we'll
Okay.
we'll continue on. All right, guys. We'll stick around if you're here. If you're not here, get over here. Where the hell are you? What are you doing? And if you're watching this on YouTube later, you're too late. But that's
It's already
okay.
happened.
It's already happened, but that's all right. There'll be
Yeah.
a next time. But yeah, we'll be right back here in just a minute.
Wiring it down.
All right, guys. What's up? What's up? We're back. We're back. We're back. We never left, but hopefully you didn't either. You did? Whatever. That's my 90s comment to you. Go look it up. Be all right. All right, so we're back. We're back with Silverquick. We were having some really good kind of off-camera conversation during the break, and I don't want to interrupt it. I want you guys to keep talking about it because it's kind of cool. But yeah, come on, yeah, pick it up.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you
Okay,
want? Where do you
so
want?
what happened was Trip had said that he was really impressed with, like, when he was watching the playthrough with these guys were playing the actual Dungeons, when these guys were playing the Temple of Elemental Evil. He was saying that he was really surprised at how well the magic items are actually placed, and they were perfect for what a party would need going on, because he knew Trip is an experienced dungeon master, so he's done this a lot before too. So he was saying, I was just amazed at how well this went. I said, yeah, to be honest with you, that one's actually not a part of the Temple of Elemental Evil. That first part you were looking at was actually my personal design as a tie-in to get you to the Temple of Elemental Evil. And I was like, and yeah, those are just the types of things that come with, your experience as a DM. You know and start to understand how to balance these things. Now, Hugh up there, for example, found a +2 rapier. That's actually a random roll, and the idea is that in the very beginning is to give the player one good magic item that's going to last him a long time, so you won't actually have to trade it up.
Great find, yeah.
So now, and it's not going to unbalance it, because as an example, a +1 rapier, no matter how you do it, it's still only going to add, a 5% dice roll over and above what a normal one. So it's only going to be plus.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a die 6. So a die 6 isn't going to overwhelm anybody's hit points. So, your monsters are.
Well, wait, isn't a rapier a D8?
Yep.
I think it is.
No, yeah, you're right. Rapier's a D8.
In 5th edition, yeah.
In 5th edition it is. So, it's the bottom line is it's not really going to overwhelm.
Well, it's also not light, so you can't dual wield.
Yeah, dual wield.
And it would actually, the Rangers, I always have this with the Rangers, especially if you try to go a dual wield Ranger, it just brings up all kinds of synergy issues, With 2 weapons, you can't cast all of your spells. If you want to use Hunter's Mark, it's competing with your bonus action.
Yep.
The rapier at 3rd level or at 2nd and 3rd level, not being light, you can't even put a dagger in the offhand. But so do you want to fight with 2 short swords or a +2 rapier? And Hunter's Mark. Yeah. So
exactly. I mean, it really is, and you do that because when you start to play test these things, you'll take multiple parties. I'm not necessarily saying everybody does that, but I do, because I do play them extensively. So I'll know exactly. I also will know exactly what tactics are going to be required to beat that. I'll know exactly what's going to happen to you if you do this. I'll know exactly what's going to happen to you if you do that. I'll know where the best place to take it on is. I'll know exactly where you should be, what you should do. And also, because I'm continuously taking multiple different parties with multiple, party configurations, like usually they're balanced anyway, because I do have to design encounters for balanced parties. But when I design them for a balanced party, then it also, I can look at, okay, well, we need this type of item for this class because this person is going to want something like this. This person is going to want something like this. This person is going to need something like this. This person is going to need something like this. So I take that conglomerate of magic items, which may seem like a lot, but the reason you said they spread well is because they're designed to spread very well. They spread to each one of the specific types of classes that's going to be participating in your party. Each different role per se. So I know it's not going to imbalance anything, but at the same time, you're all going to be going, whoa, that was just what I needed.
Yeah, that's a fine line for a DM to not. You want to reward the players, but you don't want to make the next couple of encounters unchallenging. Yeah, there's a very fine line when handing out magic items.
Yeah, well, it shows that when you're creating your modules, you're creating them from a dungeon master perspective. So you're not just pulling from the book and saying this is what it is, but I'm going to pull from the book, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to pull from the book and I'm going to throw in there, if I was a DM, when my players achieve, when they get to this pinnacle of the adventure, they're going to get rewarded because I want them to be able to continue to pursue the adventure and make it to the end because I know what challenges lie ahead. And that's awesome. I mean, it really is, because I don't know how much thought other game creators may put into just creating the game, but you're pulling a existing game, the Solasta, and creating a module within it from outside, and then adding your own little spice above and beyond of, I'm going to do Temple of Elemental Evil, but I'm going to do it and create it as if I was dungeon mastering it to some regard.
I do that, and thank you for noticing. I really do put a lot of effort into that because I already know that the encounters that I design are going to be extremely hard. Even if you've got mega items, they're still going to be where you're going to go, oh my God, what's that?
But that's what you want as a player. You want to be challenged.
Yeah,
you don't want
supposed
to have
to be
put it.
achievable, but not
Put it on
effortless.
cataclysmic mode to feel challenged. You want to play the adventure and feel the challenge of the adventure. So that's kudos to you. That's awesome.
Thanks. That is quite the compliment. Thank you.
So do you have you been a dungeon master in the past? Because I agree with Trip and everything he just said. Have you ran games?
I rarely play.
Yeah.
I was like, no matter where we were, no matter what I was doing, even back, I did tell you about my brief stint in college. I told you guys that, on a private side, but even then, I would be running, games where there'd be like, 12 people around the table because it was at a frat house. So
and unless you've got 12 big into it players, that's a whole spectacle.
Designed to be played.
Yeah.
So
cats.
I can relate to that. I ran a group at a local university here, UNC Charlotte, and it was just a group of just Milwaukee's best drinking guys that were just like, hey, yeah, man, let's try it out and see what happens, So
let's give it a shot. Yeah, ironically, that module was Pharaoh. And
nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
I was running it. They just pulled up to the temple, and they just pulled up the pyramid, and they had the guards out front, and all of them just like ran off in different directions. So combat going here, combat going here. They're all
Scooby Doo. God, I hate that. That is like the most
2 rounds for each person. Then we just go straight around the table.
Wow.
That's another good group of adventures. The I5, I9, I5 through I9, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, that's another
Yeah, I see.
classic. Yeah.
I've actually got most of them. I mean, I told these guys before that I have most of the original modules, not the physical copies anymore. Those, because I moved around so much, I eventually
Sure.
lost over time. But I did
Yeah.
digitize a lot of it, so I've got those digitized, and I also have Fantasy Grounds. So whenever it comes up, I'll like buy it. So I guarantee that I now will have it forever in like multiple places. So I've actually got almost all of my stuff. I mean, all the original stuff that I had. I'm gonna read through this for you real quick so that you guys understand just how intensive my actual collection is.
Nice.
Okay, so we have Keep on the Borderlands, Unearthed Arcana, Slave Pits of the Undercity, Scourge of the Slave Lords, which is all the A series. A2 Secret of the Slavers Stockades, Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords. And by the way, these are the original pictures. These are the original. Then we have Eye of the Serpent, Tomb of the Lizard King, Beltran's Beacon, Day of El Akbar, and let's see, Silver Palace of the Silver Princess, but that one everybody has. Lost City, which I still have. The Veiled Society, Queen's Harvest, Expedition of the Barrier Peaks,
Nice.
Hidden Shrine of Tamalakan, Ghost Tower of Inverness, Lost Island of Castanamere, and this is back when they had the Lankmar campaign from Swords of the Undercity. So that's from the Lankmar campaign. Castle Caldwell, you probably remember that one, and Lost Caverns of Thracia, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, Vault of the Drow, Dungeon Land. I remember that
I
one.
remember that one. Yep.
Against the Giants, G1 through G3, Dwellers of the Forbidden City, Needle, which is I-11, Isle of Dread, Lost Caverns of Sojkant, Blizzard Pass, Against the Cult of the Reptile God, Treasure Hunt. That one's a pretty obscure one. Pool of Radiance, Expedition. No, Lost Caverns. Yeah,
God, this is like going to a comic book store back in the day and looking at the rack and
Yes.
which one you wanted to. I know where are the miniatures.
Hey, and
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout to Kamet Sevens. Kamet Sevens just followed us, so what's up, Kamet? Thanks for the follow.
Woohoo!
Carry on, guys. Carry on.
MVP Kemet.
Mines of Bloodstone. That one was pretty awesome. Temple of Elemental Evil, of course. Tomb of Horrors.
Tomb of Horrors. That's a good one. You're gonna recreate that one?
that one would be impossible to create with the current tool set. But
Yeah.
Dragons of Despair, Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, Danger at Dunwater.
Yeah.
Oh, a really obscure one. It's actually pretty good. All That Glitters. Forgotten
That's a
Temple
UK
of
one,
Pearl.
isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a UK one.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Mordenkainen's
You
Fantastic.
nerd.
Isle of the Ape. White Plume Mountain.
Ooh,
White
Plume
Plume
Mountain.
Mountain.
Oh, these guys will never forget that one.
Another obscure one, very obscure one that you might have heard of, but this one's actually really, really cool. This one's actually very Ravenloft-ish, believe it or not. I know he likes Ravenloft, but Castle Amber.
Castle Amber.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Is that
That
sounds familiar.
was that a basic?
Yeah,
Or
that's
is that
an
advanced?
expert.
That's expert. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And two
Kind
more
of a-
experts, Master of the Desert Nomads and Temple of Death.
It's kind of a predecessor there in a way.
In a way, it really was. It really was. And it's really cool. I mean,
The Temple of Amber. Is that what you said?
Castle Amber.
Castle
I'm looking.
Amber.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Castle
in, so
Yeah.
in rules is written 5E.
Chateau
versus
de
Strahd.
Amberville.
Yep.
You have
Chateau
the
d'Amber.
Amber Temple is part of it, and so it's
Inspired
interesting to me that
by-
you guys. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go look at Castle Amber now. I'm gonna have to look
Sure.
at that. Yeah.
Oh,
So that I was almost wondering at first if that was Mark of Amber, which I believe was the other CD adventure from what we were talking about the other night.
Oh yeah.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah, it was. It was Mystara.
Yeah, that's actually.
That was
I'm
the
not
other CD
mistaken.
adventure, Mystara, Mark of Amber. I remember I bought that one and I never didn't get into it. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so dense, dude. You said I was wondering if that was Mark of Amber, and I'm like, who's Mark Amber?
You know, like Mark of Anthony. You know.
I'm
Yeah,
just here for
hey.
the ride, boys. I'm just here for the ride.
If I remember right, Mystara was the actual campaign of like basic and expert D&D. I'm
Cool.
pretty sure that's what it was called. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure that's what that was.
I think I lost some time there, like with the basic stuff, because when I was playing that, you know, I was like in the early years, but we didn't do a lot of module playing. You know, we
Homebrew
did a
campaign.
lot of homebrew. Well, you call it homebrew today, but back then it was just like running an
Tabletop.
adventure.
Yeah.
It was just running an adventure.
Well,
It's like
there
what
was
the
that
DM
too.
come up with, you
The
know.
DM had a 1st through 3rd adventure and a 5th through 7th. So from 3rd to 5th, you were doing something
Yeah.
else. You know.
Yeah, really, for the most part, you made your own because,
Yeah.
you know, it's like some of this stuff back in the day was actually kind of hard to find unless you like knew a specialty shop or, you know, had like a mail order catalog.
Oh, we
It-
drove
Right?
all around North
Jeez.
Carolina. You know,
Yeah,
we
trying to
we
buy
had
this
we
stuff.
had two places to go. You could go to Walden Books here at the
Oh.
local mall, find what you could find at Walden Books, which no longer exist,
yeah.
or there was the Dragon's Nest at
Mhm.
North Park Mall,
North
which
Park.
North Park Mall now in Charlotte is, you know, just been completely demolished.
that's
It's
so
gone.
ancient.
They're getting. I know, right? Yeah, I'm
But then
going
there was
way back,
Heroes.
exactly.
Heroes aren't hard
And
to
the heroes
find.
aren't hard to find. Yeah,
Danny
Those-
Danny
those
Sounds
heroes-
like
Thompson.
a service drug.
Danny
Service
Thompson and I
drug.
used to cut school to go to Dragon's Nest at North Lake Mall or North Park
Yeah.
Mall. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
I spent many a
Sacrificing
Saturday morning
education
up
for
there.
gaming.
Mm.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
sacrificing
fine.
public school for education. That's how I looked at it, man.
That's right.
My original group was with a guy named Eric Thorson, a guy named Ed Ellingson, and Nathan Tomey, and Adam. Oh, I don't remember his last name. But anyway, those are the original people like that far back. That was the first time I actually, you know, played with the group. So how's
Yeah.
that? But I still barely remember their names. I think Eric Thorson used to live over to like a place called Pheasant Run, which is like on the edge of town, and I had to ride out there on my 10 speed just to get to him.
Nice.
That's some
Stranger
Stranger
Things, right?
Things shit. Right?
Stranger Things, right?
Trip had a geostorm, and his girlfriend was in Raleigh, and you know Danny and Donnie and Greg lived together, and the games were at their place on Sunday, and you'd pull up and you'd see this geostorm with icicles behind the front wheels. Like, oh yeah, pizza on. We're gonna get some
Games on.
pizza. Oh yeah, it's 10 in the morning. Danny and I are gonna watch the X-Men cartoons from yesterday, and then we're gonna game
Yeah, they were
till
gonna
about
watch.
8
We're gonna
o'clock.
watch the X-Men cartoons from yesterday on the VHS tape.
Yeah, that he recorded before he got drunk Friday night. He set the timer on the VHS.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude. Let's just go ahead and
Yeah,
date
just
ourselves
so you
all
know,
the
we're
way.
like-
Silverquick-
And we're like,
Silverquick,
you
just
woke
so
up
you
and
know,
recorded this? And he's like,
I ended up
"No, set the
marrying that
timer."
girlfriend, so
Yeah,
she's still with me today.
As a matter of fact, God bless her. Once a month, we play a Star Wars game over at Hugh's house. Star Wars Heroes of the Atari Cluster, and
Oh, I read about that.
so my wife will drive me to Tripp's house to pick him up and drop us off at Hugh's house, and then Tripp's wife will come and pick us up and come and drop me off at home, and then they go home, and I'm like, how the hell did we get that lucky?
I know, right?
Really?
So special honors to them if they ever watch this.
Yeah, yep.
They're not gonna watch this.
Yeah, there's not going to watch this. So let's talk about all the stuff they don't do. No, I'm kidding.
I only knew one girl who ever actually played D&D with me. And I mean, and she was a real screwball. I mean, real arrogant.
Sounds like it.
Not that, yeah, not that I never enjoyed her company, because she really was enjoyable just because she was in her head. But you know what? Only one who ever did.
You know what? In our lifetime, man, that's been so cool to watch. It's so cool to see on YouTube nowadays that there's so many content creator. Everybody's got their Kickstarter and build videos and how to break this or how to the best spell combo. And it's really, when we were kids, it was taboo.
Yeah,
You
really.
know, it had the original Tom Hanks D&D movie. Which was inspired by like some real life events. You know, it certainly had, and I remember Tripp said it best. He said, "Well, here's the problem. You open up this book, or your aunt or your mom opens up this book, and here it's got Asmodeus and Beelzebub and stats for him, and here's a Frazetta illustration. This woman's all wearing dental floss, and you're like, oh, not in my house. This is not what my 13-year-olds ride around.
Being in the Southern Baptist South, it was a little more difficult,
Yeah, you guys have that harder than me. I mean, it was pretty tense up here too, but not quite like that.
But amongst the kids, that's what made it. Hey, dude.
Oh yeah,
D&D,
right.
I'll be there.
Yeah. I mean, up here, most people didn't even really know about it in the first place. I mean, they might have heard about it if they watched 700 Club, but that's about it.
Right. Jim Baker.
The one place that gets brought up by the South.
Really?
Oh Lord!
They tell you D&D's wrong and sell you some land in South Carolina.
And all the bad stuff that happened in the Midwest, right? There was never like all the shit they tried to pin on D&D back in the 80s, like those kids that freaking murdered some people. They tried to blame it on D&D.
Yeah.
I'll have you know that was not in the Southern Baptist South. That was in the Midwest. That's what happened in the Midwest. Those guys are cool as cucumbers. They're like, oh no, not here. We're not happening here.
Really? Well, I mean, I did because I'd actually played it for a while, and my parents are the ones who actually bought it for me. But when all that stuff came up, that was like, by that it was like 4 years later when that stuff came up, and then all of a sudden my mom was like, Steve, you know what? We're gonna have to limit your time that you're playing D&D. Where's this coming from?
You mean when I'm reading and doing math and being creative? And
Right? Yeah.
Like, where's this coming from? And I hadn't even heard
using
of
my imagination.
I got 50 gold pieces here. I got to figure out how to backpack with every fucking thing I'm going to need.
There's actually
I got to convert it to silver pieces, and I got to convert it to copper pieces. I mean,
Electrium.
I got a weight limit.
But it really did get bad for a while. I do remember that because for a while then, people were like just kind of like leery of you if they knew that you played it, and it was like, where's this coming from? It's just out of nowhere. They were like treating you like a leper, and I was like, what? Wait a minute, dude. I've been doing this forever, and all of a sudden now you're looking at me like I'm some kind of extremist about ready to knife you in the back. Like, what?
Well, that was the thing. In high school, you played this every Sunday, but you didn't tell a girl you played this every Sunday.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I lost a lot of dates that way.
I just fell asleep there Saturday night. And
lunch on Sunday? No, I can't have lunch on Sunday. I'm playing D&D with my boys on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I literally had a girl that broke up with me over like thinking it was all like demon worship stuff, and I was like, what? Where the hell is this coming from? I don't do that.
The 700 Club's more of a cult than D&D is.
Probably.
It was an outlet. You got to kind of, I walked through many a different character's life when I was playing as a character, and then as even a dungeon master, I got to experience many individuals' lives of playing out things, and it gave them a safe environment to do it in.
Well,
it's no more than reading Tolkien. You know, but the only thing is, instead of one author penning everything, you got a group of 5 people conglomerating on the story and what went down.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
makes
Because
it
it
so
was
much
about the
more
story.
than reading.
Go ahead, Jose.
I was just gonna say that's what makes it so much more than just reading Tolkien. I mean,
Yeah.
D&D. The thing that hooked me
You're
on
living
D&D,
the story.
is the fact that throughout, like, I've always just had this unquenchable thirst for knowledge, and it doesn't even matter what it is. If it's something I didn't know already, I'm interested. I want to know what it's about. And so when you sat down with D&D, especially when you got into the Dungeons Master's Guide, and you got breakdowns of every possible physical thing that could, be broken, pushed. What's the strength chest for this? What's the durability of a wooden door versus a stone door versus a, metal door? When I started looking at things like that in perspective, that's what really hooked me. Then all of a sudden I could look at the world around me and go, huh, well, that's a wooden door, so I might be able to break it down, but definitely not going to be breaking down that, just those common logic things. But when you can start applying it in the real world, just arbitrarily, just as a general practice, things can become extremely interesting, in a way that they weren't before, and
Yeah,
it unlocked doors to pursuing avenues of knowledge that you may not have pursued before, because that's not something that would ever have crossed your mind, but you're presented it in a play setting where you can explore, and all of a sudden you found a dozen new passions in the course of half an hour.
yeah.
That's a great
Oh,
point.
so true.
And
Yeah.
I'll say that Trip actually turned me on to a TED talk by a professor that
Yep.
and I really hate that I can't give you the exact name of it, but I'll find it and then I'll put it in the link of this video when it goes over to YouTube. But it's a TED talk about Dungeons and Dragons and the virtues of it, and it's very, very accurate and very, very interesting.
I
And it's a
would
great
say
perspective.
There's
I
more
would
because
say
if
that
you
it
guys,
ties well into comics, which are our modern day fables and mythology,
yeah, and
and
to
it
be honest
shares a
with you,
connection with that. You know.
yeah, there's more to it though, because I'm going to tell you guys, I mean, straight up, Gary Gygax and those people that were designing the original Dungeons and Dragons were also very historical. A lot of the things that you guys see in here, you don't even realize it until like much later. I didn't realize just how historical this stuff really is, and
Yeah.
how much of these different other cultures that this stuff actually comes from. I did not realize when I was like younger that, the ogre mage was actually the Japanese Oni, and it came from the actual legend of the Japanese Oni. There,
Right.
but it's just loaded with that. And, from a DM perspective, from a dungeon master's
Well, it
perspective.
was in Oriole, and it was introduced in Oriole and Adventures. Now that you mention it, because I remember the illustration.
Mhm.
Yeah, the ogre
Yeah,
mage. It was
it
in Oriental Adventures,
was a big
and
one.
I can totally see that it was based on the Oni. Now that you mention it, yeah.
Mhm.
The Oni is
That's
now
what it
actually a
was.
creature.
Well, the thing is that a lot of these, when you, especially as a dungeon master, you would go read these modules. And these modules were, let's just say, if you were a player, you would never understand or appreciate how comprehensive or in depth. You guys are playing Temple of Evil right now, but all that stuff you're getting in these conversations is all the stuff that's actually written in the module that the dungeon master reads through. And you would be amazed at how much actual historical knowledge is actually in this, because the guys who made this game actually based all of this on these historical civilizations. They based them on these historical events that would happen. And
Right.
so a lot of these things that you guys are looking at is real actual history, but sometimes it's the mythology, sometimes it's the actual event that happened in history, and you didn't even realize it until all of a sudden, I mean, maybe not for you guys, but for me, where I actually did go out and live around the world, where, I'd be walking around going, hey, I know that. I already know that whole story, but I just didn't know that was actually real. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, Hugh, you were talking about the other day when you're playing Temple of Elemental Evil, And we were talking about the Durgard range. You called it the Durgard, but it's actually Dwergard. That's how that's actually pronounced. That dwarf actually is a Norse or a German, one of the two, Norse or a German myth. That's actually where that comes from. And it's pronounced Dwergard. Little things that you never even knew, but you find them later. They are historical. It's for real.
It's amazing because you go back and you grab like the deities and demigods, and that was actually one of my favorite books because it had the realm of the mythos of so many nations. Now we live in a day with the internet where all that sudden all that stuff's interconnected.
Yeah,
but if you lived in small town North Carolina, you didn't know about these things.
No idea.
You had no idea. And then you open that book and you're like, wow. And then it's got Indian legends and Indian mythos in it of actual Native American. And then it's got actual Indian. And it's just, it was eye opening for me because it opened up the whole realm of the world in a different perspective.
Around the world.
You got the right version. You got the Cthulhu mythos as well.
Oh, if I don't, I do not have the Cthulhu. I will look for that one, but that's a hard one.
That's a rare one. Yeah, that's a rare one.
And you'll pay a pretty penny for it. So if anybody out there has one, just let
Triple
us
pay
know.
any price, he said. Any price. You name your price. Trip's buying. You got it. He's buying. Hey, well, look. Unfortunately, we're running to the end of the stream time. I'm sure that we will probably all sit here a little bit and chat after, but we are definitely running out of the stream. So I just want to throw a couple shameless plugs out there on our side, and then if anybody's ever seen Hot Ones, anybody ever seen Hot Ones?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we're gonna close it out Hot Ones style for Silverquick. But so shameless plugs. So we are on every Sunday, 1 to 4 on Twitch, and we are playing Silverquick's Temple of Evil. And when we complete that, I believe we're probably gonna go to, what would you recommend, Slavers or Ithmseer?
What do you want to play, Trip? Because you're going to join us.
Oh man, I want to do the Slavers.
All right, so we'll do the Slavers.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll give you guys a basic, so you can make an honest choice here. Okay. The Ruins of Elthismar is actually very deep, and the story is much deeper in it, and it's actually very Cthulhu, very, very Cthulhu, and very Lovecraftian.
Okay.
The Slavers series, you're going to get authentic D&D, and it's going to feel just like a tabletop game. But there's not going to be any conversations because they were designed at a time when there were none.
Fair.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's think on that.
We'll think on that.
Yeah, let's think on that for a little bit.
But every Sunday, 1 to 4, we're live streaming. We have the pleasure on occasion of Silverquick joining that stream. He's in the chat with you, give you insight to the module. Feel free to ask him questions. If you miss the videos, they do go over to YouTube within about 24 hours, 24, 48 hours of that. It just depends on how quick I can get them edited. And it's awesome. So with that being said, I forgot one. I would also like to plug a current Kickstarter. You got about 3 more days. It's called Menir. Go over there. They're killing it. BTT, if you're a BTT player like I am, and a few of us on here are, it looks really good. And they didn't ask me to do this. This is just me because I really want it to be successful. So that's that. Now, that being said, Silverquick, this is your time to shine, brother. What are you working on? What's coming up in the future? All that good stuff. Let us know. Anything you want to let us know?
Sure. I do actually have something as a future project that is coming up with the campaign that the devs are plotting right now, which will utilize the content they're planning on bringing to the new module. Now, the current content that they're going to give you, which is just this little DLC package with all the new feats and the new races and classes, that's going to be just a small hit, but they do have more in the works that is going to be a full campaign. So I'm also planning another another big epic campaign about like the ones I've been doing for that type of content. So you can expect that. And there's possibility, depending on how these guys what these guys think of it, that Tower of Time will still get released.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Silverquick. Yeah. Yeah. Can we get it, guys?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been
Absolutely.
Silverquick, and we are Tales from the Pythian, and we will see you on Sunday.
Woo!